Cool. Let's go ahead and get started, everyone. So, first things first, welcome and thank you all for joining me today. I am Cameron Curry, Director of Product here at Totango. Previously, I was the first non-co-founding employee and Director of Product for 5 years at an enterprise startup called AI, which Totango acquired back in September as a push to be more AI first for a lot of the things we do at Totango. And so I've been working with big data, with AI, and alongside revenue teams to use AI for quite some time. And today we're going to debunk some of the most common myths and misconceptions that I've heard in my time working with folks like you all on this webinar. But before we dive into those myths, I actually wanted to take a step back and kind of look at what's happening in the market and assess what's going on, right? Like right now with AI and all the hoopla, we're witnessing a fundamental shift in how we as people and how businesses actually operate. And AI isn't just another technology trend that's going on today. It's actually reshaping entire workflows and changing entirely what's possible. And organizations that are embracing AI aren't just doing the same things faster, they're doing entirely new things that weren't possible before. And the data shows this. Organizations that are embracing and adopting AI are seeing real results across the board. A survey done by McKinsey shows companies aren't just doing things more efficiently or faster, they're boosting top line growth, they're enhancing their customer experiences, they're improving their margins, and again, they're doing things that just weren't possible before. But despite these benefits, we are still in the very early stages of AI adoption. In fact, nearly 60% of CS organizations, based on a survey in 2024, were still not adopting AI or hesitant in adopting AI. And so that begs the question when you see things on the news all the time about all the AI advancements, like what's going on, right? I believe it's caused by three of these most common myths and misperceptions that I hear working with folks day in and day out that are really preventing people or acting as mental barriers, preventing them from starting their AI journey or their AI adoption, right? And so we're going to cover these three myths at a super, super high level to start, and then we'll dive deeper into each one of them. So starting with myth number one, AI equals ChatGPT. So instead of thinking of AI as only ChatGPT, let's think of AI as a broad field of study with many different methodologies and applications you can apply. Myth number two, our data isn't clean enough for AI to work. Now, I hear this almost every single day when I'm on a customer call, on a sales call, or just talking to other folks that I'm friends with, is they think their data is way too messy to actually work with AI. Instead of thinking about data quality and data quantity, let's thinking about having enough outcomes that AI can actually leverage to do its job. Myth number three, AI will replace the humans. Well, that may be true in some cases, right? But I think the actual thing here is AI is actually going to scale humans. So those are our three myths that we're going to cover. So now let's start diving into each one of them, starting with myth number one. So this one is kind of totally understandable, right? ChatGPT essentially exploded and became the face of AI practically overnight a couple of years ago. And so now, when most people think of using AI or organizations, businesses want to start implementing AI, they're often thinking of that classic, now classic chatbot, ChatGPT, Copilot experience where they can type in a few questions and get a quick response to, right? But instead of thinking of AI as just another prompting tool, we can think of AI as a broad field of study, right? We have machine learning, which is a type of AI that learns patterns from data. We have deep learning, which is a more advanced form of machine learning. And then we have generative AI, which powers ChatGPT and is just one application that leverages deep learning to create new content based on what it's learned. So when people say we need I always ask, what do you mean? Do you need AI to predict things? Do you need AI to generate content? Do you need AI to take actions? What's the specific use case or outcome that you're trying to get to? Because there's a whole world of AI that you can take advantage of. I had a customer a couple of years ago when AI was first kicking off and being the darling of the tech world. We were trying to build a custom prediction model to predict churn at a high degree of accuracy amongst all of their customers, right? And I was explaining the process of how we use AI machine learning to learn the patterns that lead to churn. And he stopped me really quick and said, hey, you know what? I actually don't want to go down this path with you all because I want to use AI and you guys are using machine learning and I don't want to use a machine learning. And like that was a huge eye-opening moment for me, just in terms of how most people think of what AI is. They think of AI as that ChatGPT Copilot experience where they can type in and say, "Hey, who are my most likely at-risk customers to churn in the next 6 months?" Right? They're not thinking of all the different methodologies and applications like machine learning, deep learning that power ChatGPT that you can make use of. And so when you're thinking about AI, you can actually think of AI as prediction machines operating in these three main approaches. You have generative AI, which is actually just predicting the next word based on patterns it's learned. And so when it's responding to you and creating that content you see on the screen, it doesn't actually know the full content it's writing. It's just predicting the next word to come in a sequence based on all of the patterns it's learned over time. And so that can be the same thing for like generative AI for images, right? It's just predicting the next pixel or the next brushstroke that appears on the screen. Then we have predictive AI, which is using data to forecast potential outcomes based on historical patterns. So you can do things like predict churn, expansion, close one opportunities, things like that, all based on historical data. And then you have agentic AI, which is essentially taking on entire jobs. Um, Let me go back real quick. Taking on entire jobs for, and then predicting the best way for you to actually complete and execute them. So you can give it a job just like, hey, retain this at-risk customer. And what it's going to do, that AI agent, it's going to look at in the past of how you engage at-risk customers and recover those at-risk customers, and then predict the best way to retain this current at-risk customer, right? And so when you think of AI, the real gold standard is combining all three of these approaches into one single use case. So we can do the example, quick example of sentiment analysis. What you can do is you can have all three apply to just understanding the sentiment of an individual call transcript. So what that means is you can have an AI agent actually go in and be like your expert customer success analyst and understand and look at sentiment of an individual call to understand tone, any negative or positive keywords, any like potential churn or early renewal detection systems, and then also finally understand the full sentiment of that individual call. Then what you can do is you can pass that off to predictive AI to then take those meta insights from that call transcript and the sentiment grade and combine it with other customer data to predict some future outcome based on like churn or expansion, for example. And then finally, you can use generative AI to actually generate a quick summary of why that individual call transcript, for example, was given a negative, neutral, or positive sentiment. This way, you don't have to scan a full call transcript to kind of get a sense of what's going on, right? You get a full quick snapshot of what's going on, why that call was given a negative sentiment grade, so you can quickly get up to speed about your customers or about your potential prospects. So that's kind of how you can think of AI in general. Is it's more of a prediction machine and it's more of a field of study that operates in three main approaches: generative, predictive, and agentic. Myth number two, which is the classic one that I hear all time and time again, right? Our data isn't clean enough for AI to work. This comes up in all the conversations I have. It's really like the first question after I do a presentation or after I explain some of the benefits of using AI is, oh, our data is just way too messy. People look at their messy CRM instances, their incomplete customer records, their inconsistent tagging system, and just think, there's no way AI can make sense of all of this chaos. This is like one of the biggest mental barriers preventing organizations and people from even starting their AI journey. Here's the reality, right? Everyone thinks their data is worse than it is. Everyone thinks they don't have enough data, and everyone thinks they don't have the right data. I think we need to reframe how we think about this. And instead of worrying about having enough clean Salesforce fields or clean CRM fields, it's about having enough outcomes that we want to analyze. If we think of AI as prediction machines, we need enough past outcomes to predict future ones, right? So the machine at this point doesn't even care whether your data is accurate. It's just looking for correlations amongst your data. So it's okay if your data is bad as long as your data is consistently bad. One way to think about this is, say, for example, you just launched a new product or service and it's only been about a month or two of it being live, right? And you want to predict churn or expansion. You haven't had enough kind of reps or outcomes of customers churning or renewal for AI to actually start making those predictions. So at that point, it doesn't matter if you have the most data in the world, the highest volume of data in the world, or the best quality of data. You just don't have enough outcomes. And then when you're thinking about just data in general, here's like a quick kind of cheat sheet of how you can think of the different classes of data for our revenue use cases that you can kind of leverage and see kind of if you're checking the boxes for some of these, right? So you have our relationship data, which is going to come from all your CRMs, your CSPs, your marketing automation, just like who that customer is, right? And like what's your relationship with that customer. You have your contract data, which is going to be your opportunities, your renewal dates, how much they're paying you, how long have they been paying you, what's like their potential churn date, for example. You have your usage and behavior data, which is how your customers are actually using your product or service. You have your voice of the customer data, which is going to be all your surveys, your support tickets, your call recordings, your emails, things of that nature. And then you can even further enrich this with market data. And that can be like your competitive or intent signals, your job change tracking, your headcount changes, a new round of funding, for example. You can use all those five classes of data, but in reality, AI can work with whatever data you already have. And you don't even need all five classes of data. In most cases, you can get by with just one class of data, and that's more than enough to get started using AI. But again, it goes back to the use cases or the outcomes we're trying to get to, right? So if we're trying to predict churn or expansion, do we have enough outcomes for AI to leverage and make those predictions? Or if you're trying to just generate content or get quick access to answers, then it's more simple of just, hey, here's a list of things to know about this customer. Help me brainstorm and walk through things, right? So it's more about the outcome or the use case you're trying to solve with AI and less about having a whole bunch of data. Myth number three. AI will replace the humans. Now, this is like the huge topic in 2025, right? You hear it all the time, wherever you get your news, watching TV, on the internet, on Twitter, LinkedIn, social media. You hear about AI agents all the time and how it's going to take people's jobs. And to be honest, some people, some jobs may get replaced by AI. But I do think it's the wrong way to view AI in general, right? I think AI is actually going to scale humans. Your brain is already the best LM on the planet. So instead of trying to think of using only AI for this or using only humans for this use case, let's think of a hybrid approach that combines the best of both worlds. So in this hybrid approach or in this AI human collaboration, you can have AI serve as your foundational layer that takes input from well-informed humans like yourself. So this way you have humans guiding AI to spot the right patterns and identify the right signals when analyzing data. And the result here is that AI is actually going to scale human expertise and not eliminate it. A good example here is when we do these custom prediction models for some future outcome, right? We just get a whole bunch of data, and some of that data is going to be irrelevant because you deprecated that feature 2 years ago, you changed pricing and packaging 6 months ago, you just launched a new feature last month, or whatever the case may be, right? And so if you just have AI just go off into the wilderness and analyze a bunch of data, it's going to likely return a bunch of stuff that is just not relevant or useful for your business, your customer, your use case, your outcome at this point in time. And so you need well-informed humans that are experts about their customers, their business, their product to guide AI to spot those right patterns, right? And so in this case, you have AI enabling your people in your team, the humans, to actually do what humans do best, right? So building relationships, solving complex problems, and making nuanced decisions, all while we let AI handle the repetitive, boring, grunt work and laborious tasks that eat up a lot of our valuable time. As Adam Grant puts it, the hallmark of expertise is no longer how much you know, it's how well you synthesize. Information scarcity rewarded knowledge acquisition. Information abundance requires pattern recognition. So it's not, let's stop having a fear of AI taking your job when in reality, another human that is leveraging AI to scale themselves is actually your biggest competition for your job, not AI. And to kind of conclude with another point by Adam here is it's not enough just to collect the facts. The future belongs to those who can connect the dots, right? And so now there's data everywhere. It's how well we actually synthesize and come to complex, nuanced decision making that actually is going to help not only us as humans, but also help us work with AI in general as well. So Let's actually kind of switch gears here now and go into more of some practical use cases of how you can maybe start getting going with AI and how you can kind of think about leveraging AI here. First things first, we kind of went over a little bit in the very beginning. We'll kind of dive deeper in there is understanding sentiment at scale. Now, one of the common things, obviously, everybody on this call can do is quickly take an email, a support ticket, or a call transcript, dump it into ChatGPT or whatever your AI tool of choice, and ask it to give a sentiment. And it's going to do a pretty good job. But you can't scale that across the many interactions and communications you have with all your customers across all your tools, right? You need a way for it to scale. Another example is when you actually want to understand the true sentiment of a customer, we actually want to exclude our coworkers or teammates from that sentiment analysis. And I may ask, why is that? So we've all been on these calls where customers may be upset, they're frustrated, it's maybe a tense call, and it's probably some negative sentiment being displayed by the customer. Our MO, what we're going to do as people customer facing is try to be more positive. Let's look into a resolution. Let's hear them out. Let's get clear next steps. And so when you just look at that simple context in general without some more kind of, hey, this is a customer, this is a internal employee, the employees are actually going to mask some of the sentiment from that customer because we're being overly positive to try to make a potentially bad situation better. So that's one example of how we actually need to build a different system to analyze sentiment at scale. So what we do here at Unison is we use all three AI approaches, prediction, generative, and AI agents to understand sentiment at scale. So we'll quickly go over kind of how that all works. The main thing here is we use a series of AI agents. We're only going to cover the four on the screen here, but we use, I think, for 15 to 20 just for looking at sentiment for each individual interaction. So let's take, for example, a call transcript. What we do is we have our first AI agent, the sentiment agent, which is going to actually use an ensemble AI approach to combine different ways to understand sentiment into one sentiment analysis. So what we do here is, yes, we do use an LLM that's acting as that expert customer success analyst to understand sentiment for that given call transcript. And then we use what's called embedding, which is looking for common phrases and terms associated with satisfaction, dissatisfaction, with negative emotions, positive emotions. And then we use AFIN, which is pretty much learning specific patterns of your customer base, right? And so, for example, depending on what you sell or who you sell to, you could be like a payment processor. And so, for example, one of your common features could be all related to billing, billing issues, resolving billing issues, termination, net 30, things like that, where in general, that's a common phrase associated with potential churn, right? And so using this ensemble approach, we get more sophisticated in detecting kind of what actually is the true sentiment of that given call transcript. So once the sentiment agent is done, done its job, it's actually going to pass its work over to the validation agent. So rule number one with AI is no hallucinations, right? We don't want to lose that trust with people that are relying on AI to spit out actual good information, right? So we don't want to hallucinate. We don't want to make things up to prove the point of why a call was given a negative sentiment. So that's the job of the validation agent. No hallucinations whatsoever. Once that check is passed, then we'll actually pass it over to what's called the skeptical agent. Now, that agent's job is to really make sure we're not over indexing or on positive or negative sentiment, right? We want to take a smoothened, unbiased approach to grading for sentiment. Now, once that is checked, and if at any points one of these fail, we'll just kind of restart the entire process over again and go from sentiment to validation to skeptical. But once all those pass, we then hand it off to our explanation agent. Now, that agent's job is to generate, using generative AI, a quick summary of why that individual call was given its sentiment grade. So, why was it given a neutral? Why was it given a positive? Why was it given a negative sentiment grade for that individual call? So you can see here, we're using all three approaches with some added context and like memory for like an AI term, just for understanding a simple use case of doing sentiment at scale. The next one is a case study on churn prediction. So one of the things you can do with AI is obviously do these AI prediction models. In this case, we did a custom AI prediction model to understand churn at a high degree of accuracy. And again, we're going to cover all three of those AI approaches, starting with AI agents. So the first agent we gave is like an expert data analysis. And so for this customer specifically, what we did is we had that AI agent analyze 4 years of data to understand and uncover for this customer 25 leading indicators of churn amongst their customer population. From those leading indicators of churn, we put those insights and built a predictive AI custom model that we then back tested against all the historical churn to get these numbers here on the screen. So it got to a 99.4% accuracy, predicting churn 6 months out from renewal. And then even if we expanded that time frame to 18 or 24 months from renewal, it was still in the high 95% accuracy. And then with all these predictions, right? These are very intense statistical calculations using machine learning, which is super hard for someone that's not a data scientist or someone that's not an AI engineer to actually understand what the predictions mean, right? And so for that case, we use generative AI to generate a summary of why an account is currently at risk, healthy, and the top 3 reasons why that are influencing that current customer status. So you can see in the bottom right a quick sample of an account health summary, right? We're going to show you, hey, this account is healthy or this account is at risk, and this is everything leading into causing that current status of at risk or healthy. And then here are the top 3 factors that are driving that current prediction or that current health score, for example. And this way, whenever one of your CSMs or someone on your executive team, leadership team just want to understand an account or there's an at-risk alert that gets fired, you quickly know why that account is at risk and the reasons that are driving that at-risk status so you can go action off of it. So here you can see how we're combining all 3 generative, predictive, and AI agents for one use case of building a highly accurate churn prediction model. And then you can expand this to other use cases like expansion, ICP buyer fit, or closing new opportunities, right? So, how can we get started today? First things first, let's move beyond AI equals ChatGPT, right? There's a whole field of study, and you can think of AI operating in 3 different domains. You have generative, which is ChatGPT essentially. You have predictive, and then you have agentic. Number two, let's start with outcomes and not obsessing over having perfect data or having data in the right system or having the best quality of data, right? Let's focus on having enough outcomes or the use case we're trying to solve with AI and not let data kind of prevent us from actually starting our AI journey. And then lastly, let's embrace that hybrid approach, that AI human collaboration, right? We don't need to have AI only do one thing and let us do a thing and humans only do our own thing on the side. Let's combine both because that's how we're actually going to scale and be better for our companies and providing more value. Cool. So that wraps us up here today. We do have this white paper if you want to read a little bit more, dive into it, and kind of nerd out about AI, prediction intelligence, customer intelligence with how we do it at Totango with it within Unison. And so I'll leave this up on the screen for a little bit longer so people can scan that QR code. And then maybe we will see if there's any questions in the chat. I see we have a couple of them. First one's first. I lead a team in CS, but I don't have a lot of experience with AI. What's the best place for me to get started? I would say first things first is understand kind of what are the major challenges you're having within your business or within your team, right? Do you need to have more access into what's going on amongst your customers, what they're saying, what they're talking about, what their sentiment is, what engagement patterns are? Or are you having a leaky churn bucket in a certain segment of your customer population? So like, what's that first use case you want to understand and that can solve a specific problem that you're having within your team or within your business. And I would say you want to start there rather than to kind of just doing a blind approach of picking a random AI tool that's on the block because there's a million of them now. Let's focus on the outcome or the challenge we're trying to solve and let that be the influence. And then from there, you can always kind of reach out to me and I can give you some recommendations of tools that can potentially solve some problems or a way to kind of think about things that way. Next question. How does sentiment validation scaling work in AI when external data has positive tone and messaging? Let me read that again. I think that means how if external data means like other data that's influencing that call transcript or an email or a ticket, or just data that's not actually in the system for AI to analyze. I think there's ways around that. So one of the things as well is that hybrid approach of AI human collaboration. A lot of what you can do with a lot of the AI tools, especially with Unison, is you can actually give like feedback to that sentiment detection or that key moment, for example. So say you do know that hey, this call transcript was given a positive sentiment grade, but you know deep down, based on everything else you know about that business or about the relationship with the customer, maybe that's meeting with an executive that may not be captured by an AI tool because leadership doesn't want to authenticate their Gmail or have their calls recorded. There are ways to provide that human in the loop feedback mechanism or to kind of manually and quickly tag or add some more context to AI. And from there, AI can regenerate that sentiment grade, right? And so I wouldn't kind of put AI of, hey, AI should just work off the shelf. I know that's kind of the promise here, but right now, I think we still need that AI human collaboration and that human in the loop feedback mechanism to really make sure AI is getting more fine tuned to your business and also closing any gaps of like data quality, for example. Next question. How do we go beyond generative AI when we don't have the resources or ability to develop AI agents? That is a very good question. So, the way I would answer that is a lot of kind of the trends in the industry right now is giving non-technical tools or non-technical teams access to kind of configure and tailor some of the off-the-shelf AI mechanisms to do some of these predictions, right? And so that's kind of the promise of AI agents is not only can it just generate content for you of like writing a blog post or helping you write an email to a customer, right? Some of these agents, and now that we're getting more advanced with our AI agent capabilities, will kind of naturally expand to cover more use cases. And so this way you can get to some prediction or get to some kind of agentic AI where it's automatically triggering tasks, triggering playbooks, things of that nature, without having to spend a whole bunch of money or spend a whole bunch of in-house resources in order to do so. And so I would say there's definitely things out there that I can recommend as well. I'll have a screen of my contact information. I can actually just go there now and we can kind of just brainstorm and do off of that. But I would say right now, the way the AI agent kind of trend is going is giving non-technical teams more access to those tools to apply for other use cases. We probably have all heard of maybe like the cursor or the vibe coding. Now the new thing is vibe marketing, and so I would assume a lot of those are going to be applied to other industries like vibe customer success, for example. Cool. Let's do a few more questions. Do you need a data warehouse to successfully run the Tango's AI functionality? Nope, you do not need a data warehouse. So depending on, we have a few different ways to leverage Unison. There's two different flavors. We have a standard Unison offering, and then we have a custom Unison offering. Standard or custom, we can go directly to a lot of the sources that you may already have. So that can be like a call recording, like Gong or Chorus. That can be your CRM, HubSpot, Salesforce are the big ones there, your ticketing system, but you do not need product usage data in order to, or data warehouse data in order to leverage AI for the Tango specifically. We can go directly to the tools you're already using, or what we're rolling out is ability to also kind of fill those gaps in for leadership that don't want to authenticate their email or have their calls recorded. There's ways to also counteract that and get data into the system. So answer that quickly. Data warehouse is not a requirement. Next one, does Totango have any direct API connections with OpenAI or other no-code vibe coding tools like NAI? So Totango, we self-host and keep everything ourselves. So we're actually not hitting a OpenAI API or a Cloud API. That's like a big no-no in the industry. That's how you can quickly fail every security test. So all of our data and all of our LLMs are self-hosted. So your data never leaves our system and your data is never trained. We never use your data to train our models for other customers, right? Everything is in-house and catered directly to you. I think we'll do one more question. I think I see a lot of you can and should use AI generally shared, but very little of how it's being done. I'd love to see more within Unison or other tools that show how it is working in greater detail, like the explanation agent or call analysis. Are there case studies or more detailed examples of how this works? Definitely. So you can definitely reach out to me. I'm more than happy to walk you through how this all works, but essentially within Unison for every call we rate for sentiment, every email, every ticket, every health score or outcome prediction grade we give to a customer or for a customer or for an opportunity, whatever the case may be, there's always an explanation. One of our core principles and first principles is to be able to easily translate all of the technical AI jargon into layman's terms. So this way, someone that's non-technical or someone that's on the ground floor, individual contributors can quickly understand why AI gave this outcome prediction or why AI gave this sentiment grade a positive or neutral one. So you can quickly understand what's going on behind the scenes. We don't want AI to be a black box here. We want to be able to empower you with all the knowledge about your customers and how AI is working so we can again put that AI human collaboration to work and have some more feedback mechanisms to really make sure it's tailored and accurate for your customers. Last one, does Unison have anything pre-built for Totango? And what is the level of effort to implement? So we do have things that are pre-built. So we have, that's one of the flavors of Unison. We have that standard offering, which is a more off-the-shelf, rapid time to value, delivering health scores and knowledge of sentiment and engagement at scale for your customers. And so how that works is you plug in a few data sources like your emails, your call recording tools, support tickets, and then within days, we'll analyze all those interactions over the last 90 days to 6 months, depending on your data there. And then we'll spit out sentiment grades for each customer interaction, and then also a health score comprised of individual subgrades, like your sentiment grade for an account, your engagement grade for an account, things like that. Last one, I think, is Unison going to have AI call tagging? So that is one of the big things we're pushing for. We wouldn't be like call tagging that explicitly, but we are going to have an AI voice of the customer program. So what you can think of that is understanding and auto categorizing all customer communications at scale, not only for understanding like, hey, what are our top things customers are most talking about? Like, is it billing issues? Is it being stuck in implementation? Is it product gaps that customers really want? We'll be able to kind of understand and auto categorize all those into what we call topics. And then the same thing for understanding like feedback, feature requests, enhancements at scale as well. So that's gonna be part of our broader like AI voice of the customer offering. Cool. I think that about wraps it up for all of our questions. I appreciate everyone joining here today and hearing me talk for the last 30 minutes. And so I think we'll sign off. I'll cue some of the music and have a great rest of the week and rest of your day.